This is Clark Olofsson. I'm gonna go out on a limb and guess that a lot of you have never heard that name before. I bet he probably doesn't look familiar either. But here's the thing, you probably do know the name of the condition he inspired. This is the story of how Sweden's most notorious criminal became the inspiration behind Stockholm Syndrome. I think we can all agree that generally speaking, the government aims to keep notorious armed robbers out of their banks, right? I mean, that's the entire point of security, right? Well, if that's the case, then why did the Prime Minister of Sweden give the green light to send a bank robber into the middle of a high-stakes hostage crisis unfolding in the middle of one of Stockholm's busiest banks? I mean, surely that's only asking for trouble, right? Absolutely. But before I even get into the whole crazy story of how all that happened, let's make sure we know what we're talking about. Trusty old Merriam-Webster here. So, Stockholm Syndrome, not the Muse song. A psychological response where blah, 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 blah. Okay, you know what? Let's flush all that scientific jargon down the toilet and just call it what it is. If you're charming and good looking enough, people will give you a pass, even if you kidnap them at gunpoint. Kidnapping people when you're ugly, yeah, it's a bad idea. It never goes over well. Just ask this guy. But Clark here was, he was quite the looker. Check out this photo shoot. For better or worse, I love you with every single beat of my heart, I swear. Fine, sure. I suppose that definition I gave a bit of an oversimplification. Fine. Okay, so Stockholm Syndrome is a psychological response where victims of kidnapping or hostages in a high-stakes situation begin to feel sympathy, even affection in some cases, for the people holding them captive. Kind of reminds me of like a bizarro Florence Nightingale effect. You know, that's the one where the nurse falls in love with the quadriplegic guy in a body cast. But with Stockholm Syndrome, it's not that the captive forgets that they're surrounded by danger. It's more like, in a brainwashy survival kind of way, they start to see their captor as a source of safety. Just remember that it really only works if you're handsome, though. But seriously, looks are just only one thing. You really gotta have a certain personality type to make someone fall in love with you when you're waving a machine gun around and demanding like 1.5 million in unmarked currency. Like, picture a sociopath who's charming enough for the media and general population to fall in love with, but menacing enough for the police to do whatever it takes to put them behind bars. That seems to be like the winning combo. Some examples from this side of the pond could include guys like Al Capone, John Dillinger, even Bonnie and Clyde. I've already shot an episode on those two, so be sure to stick around for that. But hey, you want some more modern examples? Something in color, maybe. Okay, well, how about guys like Pablo Escobar? Now, I'm not saying he was a good guy. But there was definitely a portion of the population that loved him. But hey, I mean, that's Central South America for you. Outlaw worship is so popular down there in some cases that it's got its own genre of music. Imagine getting like machine gunned down by the CIA on a rooftop or in like a sweaty jungle somewhere, only for some guy in a bolo tie to immortalize you in accordion music. Con su pistola en la mano, Lorenzo muy enojado. I don't know, it's not really my taste. But I mean, who am I to judge? There are bands over here that write ballads about serial killers. People are always on me in the comments to check out Macabre. Sorry, folks, it's not really my thing. I just personally don't know exactly where I would listen to that, you know? Like, it's not exactly singing in the shower type of music, is it? Anyway, the question is, how did this guy become Sweden's first celebrity gangster? Well, bear with me, because to answer that, we're gonna go back. Way back.
We gotta go back to 1955.
I don't believe it.
Well, not to 1955, no. But I always wanted to use that clip. Okay, so Clark Olofsson was born on February 1st, 1947 in this place. Trollhättan, Sweden. That's about 75 kilometers north of Gothenburg. I was doing some research on his background, trying to figure out if he was dropped on his head or hit with a swing set as a child or something. Because you don't just become a sociopath out of nowhere, right? I think it comes down to that whole nature versus nurture kind of thing. Let's take a look. Where'd I put that? Here, this dictionary again. Whatever. Screw it. Google. According to Google, sociopathy is influenced by both nature and nurture, meaning it's likely a result of a combination of genetic predisposition and environmental factors. Okay, so like being born an idiot and getting hit in the head by a swing set. Well, in that case, I definitely came across a few red flags. Dad was a booze hound and abandoned the family when Clark was 11, and Mom pretty much lived in the psych ward. But hey, I mean, this was 1950s. If you burned your husband's dinner like 3 times and didn't like when he hit you, I mean, they'd probably lock you up for hysteria. So who knows? Maybe she just didn't smile enough or something. Anyway, Clark was in the foster care system for a while, but that sucked, so he forged his mom's signature, enrolled in sailor's school, and started working on ships. This guy sailed around the world. And since I'm using more props lately, Japan, Australia, and South America, and all the major European ports. I mean, that's pretty wild stuff. Okay? That's pretty wild stuff, considering he's just a teenager. I mean, it must be nice to have foster parents that hate you so much that they don't even file a missing persons report when you disappear for like a year and a half. Anyway, he got a taste for seedy port city life and everything that comes with it. In other words, he pretty much grew up in Tortuga. Just bar fights, brawling, drinking. The first mate's always pointing an oily finger in your face telling you he doesn't like the cut of your jib. There's some drunk, toothless old fisherman who can't shut the fuck up about how he can smell a storm coming days before the barometer can detect it. Just singing sea shanties all night long.
Show me the way to go home.
If you've ever had the travel bug, then you know it's very hard to just come home and work a regular job at like Taco Bell or whatever the fuck the Swedish equivalent is after an adventure like that. So when Clark got back to Gothenburg, couldn't sit still. Fighting, robbery, burglary, probably cheating people out of gold coins. And because of that delinquent type behavior, he spent the rest of his teenage years in and out of juvenile detention. And not in and out like he would do a stretch and then get released. No. In like he would receive a sentence, and out as in he would break out. Then again, I mean, he's just breaking out of juvie at this point in Sweden. If you know anything about Swedish prisons, basically, other than like a waist-high chain link fence and the occasional guard, their juvenile detention facilities pretty much relied on the honesty policy.
Screw the honor system.
You're ruining it for the rest of us.
If you're rebel enough, you could basically just Zach Morris your way out. Just like basically put a pair of slacks and a wig like on a broomstick in your cell, hop over some chicken wire, and don't look back.
I intend to go down in history as Prankster Prince.
The guy's history of prison stints and prison breaks is so extensive that it's nearly impossible to document. Let's get the Cole's notes from his wiki. Command F prison. Okay, here we go. After escaping from juvie half a dozen times, it looks like he got into a brawl with some cops and did his first stint in prison. Says here, he made his first escape from the prison at Tidaholm. Key words there being first escape. That probably means we're gonna hear more about that in a minute. Okay, what do we got next? Blah, 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 something about police shooting at him through the door of a drug den, yada, yada, yada. Looks like he shot a cop. Didn't kill him, but still, it's definitely gonna do it. He got 8 years for that. But he busted out 2 years into his sentence by shimmying through a ventilation duct. Kinda reminds me of old Piss Pants Bundy, remember that video? Bundy crawled through the ductwork like John McClane and eventually dropped down into the closet of the jailer's apartment. I mean, minus the whole jerking off thing. but a classic move nonetheless. Looks like he was on the run for about 4 years after that, before he was recaptured. Not bad, 4 years, that's not nothing. Okay, get this. He escaped again just 2 months before his scheduled release. Yeah, so I read that and was a little confused. Like, why would you risk adding years onto your sentence when you were only 2 months away from release? Well, that's because in Sweden, between the 60s and 70s, it wasn't considered a criminal offense to escape from prison. As long as you didn't like burn the place down or strangle a guard to death on your way out, you wouldn't get any extra time if you got caught. How crazy is that? Like, you're pretty much just incentivized to break out. What do you have to lose? I mean, not your freedom. There must have been like 75 dudes with makeshift grappling hooks just scaling the wall at any given time. It sounds like the inspiration behind Ralph Wolf and Sam Sheepdog from Looney Tunes. Like, every day the prison guards would just clock in and then spend the rest of their shift thwarting escape attempts left, right, and center. Okay. So Clark's locked up for shooting a cop, robbing banks, and committing like 12 to 300 other crimes. And by this point, he's a fucking legend. Thanks to the media's favorable coverage of him, there's not a criminal in Sweden who hasn't heard of him. So when he walks through the prison gates, he's pretty much greeted like royalty by the inmates. He's giving high fives, woo, signing autographs, signing a baby for some reason.
You're not gonna want to watch that forehead, you hear me?
Anyway, while he's in there, he meets this guy, Jan Erik Olsson, or as the Swedes say, Jan Erik Olsson. It's a very sing-song language. Everything is up and down. Jan here pretty much sees Clark as the living embodiment of Jesus and sees himself like an apostle. Like, imagine if Jesus had a 13th apostle who was like Ed from The Lion King or something. So Jan's constantly following Clark around, begging him to tell him stories about crimes and prison escapes and shit, like a child before bedtime. And Clark can't fucking stand the guy. I'm not making this shit up. See for yourself.
He was so boring. I was almost killing him. The stupid fuck.
Man, watching old crooks roast each other years after a bank robbery gone wrong never gets old.
He was called the chicken thief. He was nobody.
So Clark's constantly trying to dodge Jan. But, you know, they're locked in a small room together, so it's a little tough. Jan had that, like, Mona Lisa kind of effect going on. Like, it doesn't matter where you go, his eyes are just always on you. So a few months in, Jan's running around, babbling about how his sentence is almost up. And Clark overhears this and cracks a joke like, "Hey, Jan, I hear you're getting out of here soon. Congrats, buddy, congrats. So, when are you gonna break me out of here, huh? Huh?" And Jan's like,
You serious, Clark?
so Jan gets released and immediately gets to work on a plan.
Jan and Clark's awesome escape plan. Mission: liberate Clark Olofsson from prison. Weapons and gear: submachine gun, dynamite, mixtape with Clark's favorite songs.
Every single beat of my heart.
Plan: blow a Clark-sized hole in the prison wall, extract Clark, head for the Swedish border, and live happily ever after together.
So, yeah, no. The escape didn't quite go according to plan.
He was a coward. He fucked up the dynamite.
Luckily, Jan had another idea. So Clark's given up on the idea that Jan is gonna blast him out of prison. He's back into his usual routine, digging holes, chiseling away at the wall of his cell when two guards show up. They're like, "Dude, seriously, again? Get out of the hole in the wall, wipe off the baby oil, and put on some clothes. We gotta take a drive to Stockholm." Clark later wrote in his memoirs that he had no idea what was going on. A couple hours earlier, Jan Erik walked into the Creditbanken, one of the busiest banks in Stockholm's financial district, and fired a submachine gun into the ceiling and screamed in English, "Let's get this party started!" You can't make this shit up, man. He just lifted those words directly from one of Clark's stories. Apparently, Jan thought it was the coolest thing he'd ever heard and was just gagging for a chance to say it.
That's what she said.
So next, he takes 4 hostages and makes 4 demands to the police. 3 million Swedish kroner, 2 pistols, a Ford Mustang, and Clark fucking Olofsson. Now, handing Clark over to Jan was the last thing the cops wanted to do, but Jan was acting like a fucking madman inside the bank. Negotiators on the scene were like, that unhinged guy in there is sweating, like, a lot. They were scared that if they didn't meet his demands, he might start executing hostages. Mainly because Jan kept screaming that he would start executing people if they didn't bring him Clark Olofsson. Eventually, the decision was escalated all the way up the chain of command, and the Prime Minister agreed to sign off on it. The robbery was fully covered, so I'm lucky to have some real footage to use in this episode. Otherwise, you'd be getting a lot of Dog Day Afternoon. By the time Clark pulled onto the scene, the entire area was swarming with cops, snipers, reporters, and people just trying to catch a glimpse of what was going on. The crowd cheered as cops escorted Clark through the police lines toward the bank. And keep in mind, at this point, Clark still has no idea why he's even there. No one's told him what's going on or who's waiting for him inside. When he walks through the doors of the bank, he's immediately like, oh, for fuck's sake.
I said, oh, fuck, it's you. I couldn't believe it was him. If I knew it was that idiot, I should go in and attack him.
Meanwhile, Jan's bouncing off the walls with excitement, bragging to the hostages like, see, I told you he's my best friend. See, the cops were hoping that Clark would help de-escalate the situation and put pressure on Jan to release the hostages and surrender. But Clark was just like, fuck it. Might as well make the best of it. So Jan just hands him a pistol and the two teamed up. Jan scared the shit out of the hostages with all his screaming, panicking, shooting, and threatening to murder everyone in sight if his demands weren't met. So when Clark arrived, his presence actually did have this calming effect on the hostages. And over the next 6 days, something kind of extraordinary happens. The hostages begin to sympathize with their captors. Yeah, even Jan, somehow. Kristen, one of the hostages, got on the line with the negotiators to boast about how great Clark and Jan were.
Alltså jag är inte det minsta rädd för Clark och den här andra killen.
Du litar alltså på både på Clark och...
Ja, jag litar fullständigt på dem. Jag skulle kunna åka hela världen runt med dem.
Travel all over the world with them? That's a little much, don't you think? You want to third wheel all over the world with 2 completely unhinged bank robbers? I get it if you want to grab a coffee with them after their life sentences are up, but travel the world?
Baby, I got you, baby.
Like what, go to Disneyland and eat cotton candy and shit? While Jan waves around a machine gun pistol because the lines are too long? You want to explore the 7 wonders of the world with these two? Spend the summers teaching English to a pygmy tribe in the jungle somewhere? Man, that Stockholm shit's crazy. So the Prime Minister of Sweden eventually hears all that's going down and it's like, wait, what do you mean the hostages have teamed up with the bank robbers? They're the bad guys. We're the good guys. So he hops on the phone and calls, and Kristen talks to him like he's the bad guy.
Hallå?
Hallå, ja.
Ja. Ja, det här var Kristin Enmark. Hej. Det är jag som sitter som gisslan här i Kreditbanken bland annat.
Ja.
Jag tycker alltså att här sitter ni och schackrar med våra liv.
Varför då?
Men kan vi inte låta mig och Elisabeth och Clark och rånaren att de får ner sina utländska pengar och 2 pistoler och så får vi åka iväg.
On that same call, she told the Prime Minister, quote, I trust Clark and the robber. I don't trust you. So finally, by this point, the cops are thinking we got to do something fast before we're dealing with 6 robbers instead of 2. So they cut the power, water, and ventilation to put pressure on Jan. Doesn't work. So they turned to psychological warfare, loud noises, sleep deprivation, ABBA. Yeah, that drove them fucking mad, sure, but it just backfired. All the cops were doing was reinforcing the hostages' idea that they were the greater threat. Something had to give. So, they locked themselves in the bank vault. Bad move. Clark's got his arm around Kristen like, can you believe these fucking pigs? To serve and protect my ass. What are they gonna do next? Drill a hole in the ceiling and pump gas in? Yeah. That's exactly what they did. The cops brought in this drill team who were like the inspiration for Armageddon. One guy's like chomping on a cigar while wielding a pickaxe. Another guy's like, wait, this is Sweden, so it probably looked more like this. They're up there just feet above Clark, Jan, and the hostages, just drilling away for fucking hours on end. Down below, everyone's having a nervous breakdown. Clark's holding Kristen while she bawls her eyes out, just stroking her hair on the head and just telling her, it's gonna be okay, it's gonna be okay. And eventually, the drillers break through. The cops lowered down a camera and snapped this iconic photo. It's the only photo taken from inside the bank throughout the 6-day standoff. That's Clark there, top right, just peering around the corner. You can't see Jan though. He's probably sweat so much that he's transparent or something. But moments after that picture was taken, tear gas was pumped into the vault. And it worked. Clark and Jan surrendered, and the hostages were brought out one by one. They hugged their captors goodbye. Kristen even kissed Clark on the cheek. The world watched, stunned. Newspapers reported that the hostages seemed sad that the whole thing was over. Jan was convicted for the robbery and sentenced to 10 years. Clark was cleared of aiding in the robbery, considering the cops brought him in there in the first place. During the trial, Kristen, Birgitta, and Elizabeth had his back.
And Christine, she's absolutely convinced I saved her life. Yeah, she said that many times.
The hostages visited both Clark and Jan in prison afterwards, multiple times. Stunned and kind of frustrated by the hostages' behavior, criminologist, however the fuck you pronounce this guy's name, coined the term Stockholm Syndrome. Kristen went on to become one of the most vocal critics of the term, labeling it victim blaming, saying she just did what she had to do to survive.
I don't expect that anyone in the whole world can understand what he meant to me in there. What can you... He saved my life. People can't understand this, and I what can I say? No, you can't, because you weren't there. I love him in a way. I'm not in love with him, but I love him in a way. He saved me. Or perhaps I saved him a bit. This is Clark and my son. It's not Clark's son.
You're still the one that I love, the only one I dream of. You're still the one I kiss goodnight. I'm so glad we made it. Look how far we've come.